So you're gonna move to the Philippines or Vietnam or Thailand, start a YouTube channel, and make your money that way. That's not line plan. It's not line plan. Hey, I'm sitting here enjoying my coffee and breakfast. It's just a wonderful day. But I've been struggling with the YouTube video for almost 2 weeks now. It's been driving me nuts. So I want to talk a little bit about YouTube and what I've learned and why it can be frustrating and why it's important to keep things in perspective. So it's easy to achieve a certain level of competence, right? A basic level of competence filming. It's easy to achieve a basic level of competence editing. And then storytelling is probably the hardest factor in YouTube. Presentation, storytelling, to really get competent at. Now, to master these things is, very difficult. 1 to 3% maybe master one of them. And anybody that masters all three, they're the unicorns that you see and hear about. So what's going on with this video and me is I spend most of my time out there in the real world and not, fussing around on the computer, cutting and editing and, making thumbnails. I mean, I watched one video and I can't remember who it was, but they were saying they can spend up to an hour and a half on a thumbnail. An hour and a half on a thumbnail, trying out different thumbnails, and it's just ridiculous to me. YouTube is a hobby. The real world is where I want to spend my time. Now, thankfully, a few years ago, I watched this video, and I went back and looked for it last week. I spent a couple hours looking for it. I couldn't find it, but there was a couple doing travel videos, and she was saying that they spend each, 20 to 40 hours a week on their YouTube videos. That's not, she said, and then we do chats, and then we do this, and then we have a vlog or an actual written blog, and we have notes and members. But just the actual video, they spend 20 to 40 hours a week, and they do a video about every week to 2 weeks. And I was like, wow, that is a full-time job. And to me, it just is insane to me. And she was breaking down that, the amount of time they actually spend videoing is very small. Maybe 20-30% of their actual time on the video is actually spent videoing. And me, in my world, I want to spend 90% filming because I like to film, right? And there's some other things I'll talk about filming in a minute, but I just looked at that and I went, And so this video I'm trying to edit, it was when I first left America, and I've been playing around with YouTube, but I don't have the footage I thought I had. So I had a storyline or a narrative in my head. I was going to cut it together, and the footage, some key footage is missing. So now what do I do? And, how do I cut what I've got to make it coherent and still include the memories I want to save or preserve, and also make it somewhat watchable, digestible. It's just really frustrating me. It's driving me nuts. And it's not because I have a lot of self-worth in YouTube, my YouTube, or real important for me to put out only quality videos. It's because this one story, it was really important to me, and I wanted to tell it for me in a better way than I'm able to. So it's kind of disappointing, right? I'm kind of touching on a lot of things here, but one thing that I want to bluntly, touch on and highlight is if you put too much self-worth into how good your YouTube is, that can have negative side effects when you don't achieve your goals. And when you get negative feedback, if your self-worth is dependent on your YouTube or is fed by your YouTube, then that can have really negative side effects if you start listening to people's feedback. So setting up the system to measure in a way that's somewhat rigged in your head, setting up your evaluation scheme, to me is very important. It's funny, I was at a city council meeting, and they were talking about some issues, and it was so frustrating to me because the bureaucrats at the city wanted to set up this system where they were going to have no accountability for the work they were being asked to do. They were basically setting it up so that they could all just F off and nobody would be able to be held accountable or even recorded. They weren't going to set up any metrics to record anything. And it comes down to what we do personally, or what I do personally, and I believe this is true for most everybody, is we always go into anything with a set of metrics that we're going to measure ourselves by. And so if you're going to do YouTube, my experience is set those metrics appropriately so that it's not about the product or this or that. It's about the process. It's about getting it done. It's about accomplishing those types of goals. If you're setting numeric goals, then it's work. And if you want work and you want to make money, more power to you. If YouTube is how you plan to support yourself, then yeah, you need to go that way. You need to set those metrics, those goals, and you need to be very disciplined about it, because I watch a lot of people just flutter out, and they're just in my perspective, they're just so close to hitting it, and not hitting it big with a big viral video and then being the superstar, right? It's a grind. But if you're not getting the feedback that keeps you grinding, why would you keep grinding? And so that kind of goes into what I was saying, is I want to set up my life to where I'm getting feedback that supports the behavior I want, right? And I want to give myself the feedback that supports the behavior I want. So it's an interesting subject, but this video is just driving me nuts, driving me crazy. And it's a time hack. Like, I don't think people realize how much time YouTube will consume. And next thing you know, you're sitting here in the corner of the couch instead of being out and exploring the city. So it's all about choices, right? Choices. But I firmly believe if you have any inkling of doing YouTube, do it. And I'm guilty of this. I went out and bought a bunch of cameras and this and this and that, and I'm like, okay. And for me, I'm more about the gear and the filming than the posting and the this and this and that. Like, I enjoy using the different gear, seeing how it works, seeing how it reacts to light and motion and things. But and I'm always referencing this guy for a good reason. Overstay Road. He's like, look, go get an iPhone. Go get a little iPhone, right? Film your video and put it up. And after you put up 200 videos, if you need new gear, go get the new gear. But don't expect. I would not tell anybody to expect to make money on it unless you put in a shitload of time, effort, and it's not about putting in money. It is literally the time and effort to get competent, in filming, competent in storytelling, and competent in editing. And the first two, I think, are pretty easy. The third is challenging for a lot of people. And the good storytellers, they're just, most are just naturally good, right? Others have definitely studied the art of storytelling. Obviously I haven't. But yeah, so I got this video. It's just driving me nuts, and eventually, I'm gonna have to go back to my childhood for the answer. Back when I was working construction. Fuck it, nail it. Right? You work in construction, and you start getting diminishing returns on your effort to improve something, and the work doesn't produce any significant improvement. So finally, you just say, "Fuck it, nail it." Right? It's as good as it's going to get. Fuck it, nail it. It's not really as good as it's going to get, but is it worth the time and effort to bring it to the level I want it to? No. At the end of the day, I need this video to tell the story so I can post the next video. And when I go back and look at this in 10 years, hopefully, I need this video to tell the story so the other videos make sense. So I need to just, sit down and nail it, right? I need to just sit down and post it. I need to sit down and just put it out, and it'll be good, bad, other, but, it is what it is, right? And I think that's another important point that I've learned is to know, to really put some real perspective on things. And how important is this to be perfect? How important is this to be, I'm not out there trying to hit a moonshot, right? If you're sitting there shooting rockets at the moon, you're trying to hit the moon every once in a while, right? That's important. Everything's perfect, right? I'm just out there with a shotgun shooting at flies in the air, and maybe I'll hit a bird, I'm not really worried about that. I'm just out shooting, just out popping off shells to pop off shells. I don't need to bring home a dead bird to eat for dinner. It's purely just recreation. So let me touch on filming a little bit. When you're a single guy, there's a couple things about filming I'm going to touch on. One of them is when you're a single guy out walking around talking to yourself, that talking helps solidify memories, helps change your perspective about things. When you say things out loud, words have power. And quick drop in here about filming out in public. So filming out in public, if I walk around and talk like, oh, that's statue, and like I'm having a conversation with myself, I look crazy. And I don't need to look any more crazy, right? I don't need to put it out there. Hey, this guy looks crazy. He's talking to himself. But if I have a little camera and I'm talking to the camera, I don't look so crazy. So it's more comfortable to verbalize things out loud using the camera as a prop or a whatever, right? I just lost the word I was looking for. A crutch. Using the camera as a crutch to allow me to talk to myself in public without looking so crazy and scaring all the little kitties and little old ladies, right? Anyway, there you go. That talking helps solidify memories, helps change your perspective about things. When you say things out loud, words have power, and this is a lost concept, but it rings so true. And even in college these days, or back when I was looking at college, they said read it out loud in your head, because when you read it out loud, your words, it changes the way your brain hears them and sees them. Especially, somebody like I always drop words when I'm writing. I'll be thinking this and there'll be like 3 words missing. And so you're like, what the hell is this guy trying to say? But if I read it out loud, even sometimes then my brain just skips over them, but typically you'll catch it, right? Because it'll sound funny. And so if I'm out looking at all these great buildings or whatever, and I'm talking about them out loud, it helps my brain process it differently. Now, ideally, you'd have somebody with you, you talk about it and go back and forth and banter. But even just talking to a camera by yourself puts those words into play, right? Puts that vocal component to it and engages that part of the brain, and it helps solidify the memory, helps modulate the memory, has all these other things that it does. But also, it's a good personal therapy device. If you go on and rant, make a YouTube rant about something that's bothering you or something that made you happy or, something you observed, it again lets you verbalize it and lets you. Now the advantage here is you can put that out there and get other people's feedback. So it's like having a conversation. When you go back and you listen to the tone of the comments or the reaction of the comments, how are people responding to me talking these words, right? Is it mostly negative? Is it mostly positive? Is it neutral? Is it yin and yang? Is it very polarizing? Is it, trigger some emotional responses? Does it, elicit pragmatic responses, or solicit pragmatic responses? So there's a lot of advantages to actually doing a YouTube channel if you're a single nomad out there traveling the world. And every once in a while you get to meet some amazing people, right? You get to meet some really cool people doing some really cool things. So that's my thoughts, but YouTube is definitely harder than most people will tell you. And if you want to make money at it, I would say my opinion is pretty much anybody can make money at it. It's finding your niche and just work. It's literally just work. The more work you put in, I think the more money you'll make. I mean, there's some people out there with the craziest YouTube channels, and they're making money. And I've got, after watching a lot of YouTube, I see 10 or 15 other channels that I think somebody could start and run with that I haven't seen or haven't seen enough of. Market's not flooded, and you could sit there and run a channel, but it's work. It is work. And my desire to work that hard on something like this that I know I'll never be great at, no. Now, if I had a different personality, if I had a different demeanor, if I was more of a blah blah blah, whatever you want to insert any adjective you want there, then I could see myself making more money. I could see it being worth more of my time and effort, being worth more of my personal attention. But at the end of the day, YouTube's pretty close to the last thing on my mind. Unfortunately, this one video is kind of frustrating me because it was important to me personally, and it's going to suck. So I just got to put it out there and get on to the next video. And I think that's the last thing I want to say in closing is, if you are doing YouTube and you have a bomber video, best thing to do is just bake another cake, right? Oh, that cake sucked. Okay, well, let me bake another one, feed that one to the dog, right? Oh, that pancake sucked. Okay, there you go. Just fed the dog, and guess what? I got 2 more on the griddle, right? And that's one of the great things about YouTube is, there's always tomorrow. You can always post another video. If you lose a subscriber over one video, so what? There's millions of more people out there that can subscribe, and people can come back too. So yeah, don't discount how much time it takes to actually do YouTube. Don't discount how much personal courage it takes to actually film a video, put it online, and let it be judged by other people, knowing that you're intentionally not putting your best effort, your best work, because your best work will take weeks. And I don't have weeks. I don't have hours. I don't have days. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting thought process. Hopefully I walked you through some of that. Hopefully you can enjoy a sunrise someday with some coffee, and run the thought experiment like this for yourself and see what you think. Anyway, take care. Have a great day. Thanks for coming by. Okay, a little drop-in edit here. So one of the reasons YouTube is hard, I just kept saying it's hard. So let me explain some of this real quick, is even if you don't put a lot of self-worth into YouTube, every time you post a video, it's going to be judged. So you can go in your kitchen, cook some food, go to the table, eat it, and you're happy. But would you put it on the table at a 5-star Michelin restaurant to be judged by critics? Would you even put it on the counter at Denny's to be judged by critics? And knowing that there's really mean, ruthless jerks out there who all they want to do is poke you, that's where it gets hard to post videos. And it gets even harder knowing that you cooked that meal or those eggs or whatever in a rush with one hand tied behind your back, and you just want to eat them, right? But knowing that you're not putting out the best possible product, because the best possible product takes more time and effort and energy then it's really practical to spend on it. So it's a weird thing to kind of articulate, but knowing that you're putting out something that isn't your best work and having to understand that it's your best work for the time and effort you put into it, and accepting that people will ridicule you and point out, oh, you missed this, oh, you missed that, oh, you missed this. And those are things you may know, things you may not know. They may help you see something you didn't see, or they may be telling you something you just ignored. And you can't really go back and say, well, I just ignored that because it wasn't worth my time, because then they think you're just a D-bag, right? Dirtbag. So that's kind of in a nutshell why I think YouTube, one of the reasons I think YouTube can be hard is, opening yourself up to that judgment, and, opening yourself up to those strangers to say, hey, let it fly, right? Let me see what you got. And there are some vicious, mean people out there that all they want to do is poke at you. And sometimes, I say stupid things and I deserve being poked. Sometimes I say mean things, I deserve being poked. Other times, people just don't interpret what I was saying correctly, or people are too emotional and responsive and don't really think out what I was saying. And all of it, at the end of the day, knowing that it doesn't matter to me tomorrow, it doesn't matter this afternoon, it doesn't matter, right? What matters is, am I happy with the content I put out? And that's the key. That's the hard part. And so having to constantly reframe it into, did I do a good job with the time and effort I put into it? Because if you put an hour at 100% effort, that's one thing. If you put an hour at 10% effort because you got 30 other things going on in the back of your head, that's another thing. And again, I'm not a professional. I'm not looking to get paid. I don't want no super chats. I don't want any of that, right? I don't have a PayPal. I'm not an e-bagger. I'm not trying to, milk money. If YouTube gets to the point where they're paying me, AdSense, great. But, that's not my goal. And I can show you a dozen reasons or a dozen examples of how and why that's not my goal. Actions I've taken or not taken. So anyway, I just wanted to cut that in there. And I rambled on a little too long because I've had too